What is the impact of the Trae Young trade to the Washington Wizards on the Timberwolves and potential trade targets for the Wolves? Next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network. Happy Thursday, everybody. Happy game day. The Timberwolves take on the Cleveland Cavaliers, the first night of a home-and-home series against the Cavs at Target Center this evening. We'll talk about that a little bit later, about that matchup. Of course, the first time the Timberwolves have seen the Cavs so far this year. So I have some thoughts on that matchup and what the Cavs have been up to lately. But we have to start with the fresh news of Trae Young being traded from Atlanta to Washington, a trade that happened quickly after it was rumored to be serious, and then all of a sudden it happened. And the Timberwolves were named as a team that was potentially interested in Trae Young, a team that Trae Young was apparently interested in potentially being traded to. It was never going to happen. And I was actually planning to talk about that on the show, but instead we could talk about the impact of Trae actually being traded to the Wizards and the Timberwolves as a potential suitor for other possible matches on the trade market. Remember, we're less than a month now from the trade deadline, which is now the first week of February, much earlier than it used to be. So we're going to dig in on a couple of those options. It's been a couple of weeks since we visited those and talked about the landscape of the league post Trae Young deal, and if there could be any impact on the Timberwolves there. We'll also talk about some way too early award conversations. Kevin Pelton at ESPN had an article earlier this week about that, so I want to dig in on that a bit before we get to the Wolves Cavs preview later in the show. First, a big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. All right. So if you missed it, the trade is Trae Young going from the Hawks to the Wizards. And I don't usually cover other teams' trades much on this show, but because the Timberwolves were listed as a potential suitor for Trae Young, and Trae Young was apparently interested in playing for the Timberwolves, I think it's relevant. Also, there's a clear impact here on, everybody knows the Timberwolves are looking for a point guard, and we can debate. I mean, I know Trae Young led the league in assists last year, but obviously he's a scoring first, high usage, put the ball in my hands guard, right? And there's certainly some merit to exploring having somebody like that next to Anthony Edwards, like the Kyrie and Luka situation a couple of years ago worked wonderfully for the Dallas Mavericks. There is some, yes, there's only one ball, only so much ball to go around, only so many shots to go around. A high usage guard is something the Timberwolves may have interest in to have that other creator and other attacker opposite Anthony Edwards. And we've talked about a number of other names that have been kind of bandied about that the Timberwolves may or may not have interest in. We'll get to all those names here in a second. The Trae Young thing was never going to happen in Minnesota because the salaries would be nearly impossible to match unless you're trading Julius Randle. Randle would have to be involved along with other pieces, and that just wouldn't have made any sense for Minnesota. I think Trae Young has gone from being, I think, vastly overrated, like just completely and utterly overrated. Do you know what Trae Young's career 3-point percentage is? It's like well below league average. It's not good. I think he's at times been vastly overrated, and now I think we've swung maybe a little too far the other way. I think in the right context, he's a plus NBA player. He can be, certainly. And he does a lot of things really well. And I'm curious to see what that looks like in Washington. They've been playing better of late. And, why not cash in the CJ McCollum chip and the Corey Kispert chip? So the trade is Kispert, who's been hurt a lot this year, and CJ McCollum, who obviously was always going to be traded by this team. So another kind of layer to this is that a few days ago, the Timberwolves were listed as Coby White of the Chicago Bulls was somebody who is listed as a name the Hawks could be interested in if they traded Trae Young. And we know the Timberwolves have interest in Coby White. It's been reported before. It was reported again recently, actually, this week. Trying to see if I can find who reported that this week. But it was out there in a couple different places that the Timberwolves had interest in Coby White. Let's see. Most recently, it was Brett Siegel of Clutch Points who brought it up. This was actually just on Wednesday. Said that the Timberwolves remain interested And prior to him, it was reported by, let's see, there was somebody else that reported a couple weeks ago. We talked about it on the show. And I think it's notable that the Hawks, who have not traded Trae Young, acquired CJ McCollum in that trade. And they're unlikely to just get rid of McCollum for a couple reasons. One, the Hawks are pretty good, and they've been good without Trae Young in a weak Eastern Conference. They're not just going to decide to not win. And they're also unlikely to buy out CJ McCollum. Why is that? Well, the value of buying out CJ McCollum, it becomes really complicated, I guess, is the best way to say it, if they try and buy him out, because he has bird rights, meaning he can sign whatever team has him at the end of the season, or whatever team has him ultimately when the contract is up, has the ability to sign him for a longer contract if he has bird rights. That's the super layman's explanation. It's valuable in a trade, right? And right now, the Hawks are thinking, okay, he can plug that role, the Trae Young role, in a lower usage version of that, even though CJ McCollum is a score first combo guard. But then they could trade him in the offseason in a sign and trade, because they'll have his bird rights. So they could sign and trade him to somewhere else, because if they don't buy him out, they retain his bird rights. Obviously, if they buy him out, he becomes a free agent. He can sign anywhere. Plus, if he's bought out, certain teams couldn't sign him, including the Timberwolves, because they're over the first apron. So there's two layers to this. One, if McCollum were to be bought out, the Timberwolves could not sign him. So there's that. Two, the Hawks are unlikely to buy him out because they'd rather retain his bird rights and potentially sign and trade him this offseason. And McCollum probably, where's he going to sign if he were to be bought out? I don't think he's going to want to be bought out. So all that to say, he's very likely staying in Atlanta. Coby White is probably not a trade target for Atlanta anymore now. So that takes another team off the Coby White list. And I am intrigued. I'm on record as saying that I would love Coby White in a Timberwolves uniform. Love's maybe a strong word. I'd be very interested in it, depending on what the Wolves have to give up. And I think there's some appeal to giving up a Conley Dillingham package. I certainly would not trade, and I don't think they would ever consider trading Jaden McDaniels in a trade like this. My take was I thought the Bulls could do better than a package centered around Dillingham and Conley and potentially a pick swap or a second-round pick or getting a third team involved. I do think they could do better. Now, Coby White is a free agent, but could you orchestrate the deal and then sign an extension? I think that's still possible. I like Coby White as an option for Minnesota, and I think this trade might make it a little bit more likely. Also note that there were no picks involved in this deal either. It was just Kispert and McCollum from the Wizards to the Hawks. Okay, so I don't necessarily think this trade does much to the trade, the trade value of Coby White. But it takes a potential suitor off the table in the Atlanta Hawks. Other players the Timberwolves could potentially have interest in. We've talked about Darius Garland before, who of course we'll see in this evening's game and also Saturday in the home and home against Cleveland. The injury thing has always been an issue for him. He's played for an underachieving team. This year they've been an underachieving team, perhaps overachieving last year. And injuries have always been a problem for Darius Garland. I worry about the combination of that and the not super efficient shooting and the spotty defense. But the best version, the ceiling version of Darius Garland, who is still just 26 years old, is an attractive option. He's still got 2 years left on his deal. I just think that gets sticky. LaMelo Ball I've talked about. In theory, I like it, but I don't actually. That's not realistic. I don't think it works. Same thing with James Harden for similar, but I guess different reasons. And also the Clippers are playing a little bit better, although they lost again yesterday. But I don't think the Wolves would have real interest in Harden, and matching that salary becomes ridiculously hard. Plus he's got the player option for next year. I still think of all the names that have been, as I said, bandied about, Coby White is the most realistic one. It's the least tricky because you could give up less and keep him as a rental. You could give up a little bit more and extend him. But the question is, could somebody else outbid the Wolves? And I think the answer is yes in this particular deal, because you're obviously not moving a rotation guy, north of Mike Conley in a deal for Coby White, even if you are extending him. I just don't think that makes any sense. Coby White is good. He's not better than, obviously, and I hesitate to even say this. He's not better than. They're not going to trade Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert. They're not doing that. So I still think White is a realistic option. Darius Garland, I think I would rather pay the Coby White price and get Coby White than pay the Darius Garland price and get Darius Garland, if that makes sense. In a vacuum, I think Garland is the more attractive, has the more attractive upside and is probably the better player if healthy, which is a big if. But you're going to have to give up a lot more to get 2 years of Darius Garland than 1 year in a potential extension with Coby White, right? Now, the extension stuff also gets sticky in terms of numbers and all that as well. And then I'm going to set Harden and Ball way over here because especially with how well the Wolves have been playing overall of late, despite some of the frustrating losses, the Nets lost, the Hawks lost, etc. That feels like a break glass in case of emergency type of a move to trade for a LaMelo Ball or James Harden, and I don't think that's happening. I also should note that Jake Fisher, well, actually, let's do that next. Let's talk about what Jake Fisher said next, and I'll kind of give my take on where the Wolves stand in terms of the trade market, and then we'll get into the ESPN stuff about awards this time of year, the 40%-ish mark of the season, where we'd stand in terms of awards, and then also preview tonight's Wolves-Cavs game. We'll do all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money goes each and every month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. Plus, who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? And that's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money will show you what you're paying for. Like for me with streaming services, I knew I was paying a lot in streaming services, but I didn't really realize how often the dollar amount you're paying every month changes. And look, it'll save you money almost immediately if you just compile like that one genre that you spend more than maybe you think you do. It'll track all your subscriptions, lets you cancel them right in the app with just a few taps. No more hunting down customer service numbers, etc. The automatic transaction categorization is a game changer. You can finally see exactly where your money's going each month. Plus, you can set budgets and goals, get personalized insights, and receive real-time alerts for large transactions, upcoming bills, and low balances. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is also brought to us by our friends at Betterhelp. This episode is sponsored by Betterhelp. As we have now rolled into the new year, we're just a week into January. There's a lot of pressure to chase a new you. But sometimes it isn't about reinventing yourself. It's about feeling a little less weighed down. Therapy can help you understand what's been holding you back by giving you an outside perspective on your emotions, motivations, and relationships. And that's why BetterHelp can be such a helpful place to start. Their therapists are fully licensed in the U.S. and work under a strict code of conduct. Plus, they can help you match the therapist based on your needs and preferences, so you're not doing all that legwork on your own. Plus, if the match isn't a right fit, you can switch to another therapist from their tailored recommendations at any time. BetterHelp has served over 5 million people with more than 30,000 therapists, and live sessions average a 4.9 out of 5 rating across more than 1.7 million client reviews. BetterHelp makes it easy to get matched online with a qualified therapist. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/NBA. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. A big thank you once again for making Locked On Wolves your first listen of the day. And of course, thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We could not have done that. We could not have achieved that without you, the loyal listener. If you haven't already, consider going to check out our new Everydayer Club. You get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Wolves compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. Plus, you get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of each Locked On show. You can go to lockedonwolves.supercast.com. That's lockedonwolves.supercast.com, or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Okay, so one of the other notes I wanted to get to on the trade front is that Jake Fisher, as of this is, I believe, reported just on Thursday, Jake Fisher noted that the Timberwolves, I should also mention, he was the one that mentioned that Trae Young said he was interested in the Timberwolves and the Nets, but the Wolves and Nets reportedly were not super interested in trading for in trading for Trae Young. Fisher reported that the Timberwolves are unlikely to pursue any high-priced point guard for the reasons that I've already listed out. It's just a hard thing to match the salaries and then commit to whoever it is you're trading for. And so this is me talking. I would put Harden and LaMelo Ball in that same category. There's obviously other reasons why you may or may not want to, why you, in this case, would not want to trade for one of those guys. Fisher mentions the Wolves, of course, are open to trading Mike Conley's $10.8 million expiring deal and Rob Dillingham's rookie contract, which is nearly $7 million. And he talks about how the Wolves are I think he uses the phrase, not opposed or not against trading Rob Dillingham, who, of course, was just drafted a year and 5 months ago, almost 6 months, almost a year and a half ago, excuse me. Of course, the Rob Dillingham thing, I don't want to turn this into a Dilly conversation, but obviously this is a combination of, like, we could play the game that's like, oh, he hasn't developed into the guy because the Wolves haven't developed him into the guy. Well, yeah, that's true. Both player and organization deserve, there's some culpability there, right? But we could play this game all day. What about Jarrett Culver? Like, is it the Timberwolves' fault Jarrett Culver wasn't good, or was it Jarrett Culver just never going to be good and he wasn't anywhere else he went, right? There's you play the Steph Curry butterfly effect game. What if the Wolves had drafted Steph Curry? Would Steph Curry have been Steph Curry? We don't know, right? Like, we just don't know. And nobody is in, like, Rob Dillingham's shoes except for Rob Dillingham. We don't know what it looks like, what the team is experiencing with Dillingham in film sessions, in practice, et cetera, and exactly what, like, clearly something is not clicking where he hasn't gotten the amount of run, the amount of leash on the floor. He's shown flashes at times last year and to a lesser extent this year, but far more often than not, when he's given leash, he doesn't perform. And so, of course, Minnesota is going to be open to trading him. And obviously, I hope he's good wherever he goes. If it's Minnesota or somewhere else, I want the guy to succeed, but it's hard to blame the Timberwolves for trying to trade him. And it's also hard. It's dangerous to blame the Wolves for his lack of success. You could blame him for the pick. You could give them some blame for avoiding, or not avoiding, being unable to develop Rob Dillingham. But until we see Dillingham go somewhere else, and I'm sure he's still got value, right? We're not talking about an actual Jarrett Culver situation where he was essentially given away toward the end of his rookie deal. This is just a year and a half removed from being the number 8 pick, in albeit a weak draft, but like, Dillingham's got potential. Like, teams will have interest in Rob Dillingham. I don't think Minnesota's going to trade him just to trade him. Like, they're not going to trade Dillingham for, a Monte Morris type. Obviously not him. I think he's playing overseas now after the Pacers waived him. They're not going to trade for that type of a point guard for, like, I don't think they're just going to give him away for a rental. I do think they would consider trading him in a deal for Coby White if they could extend Coby White. I think they could consider trading him in a deal for that type of a player or better, combined with Mike Conley's salary, combined with a pick swap in 28 or whatever year that they can swap picks in. I think it makes sense for that to be on the table, because the other thing you don't want to do is to keep investing in something that, if you think it's already a sunk cost, don't, head in the sand, be like, nope, it's fine. It's going to work out. Rob Dillingham could turn into a fine pro. Dude's 20. Like, he could end up being really good. But the Wolves are really good right now as a team, and they need somebody in that spot who can challenge for rotation minutes. And right now, those minutes have gone to Bones Highland. Those minutes have gone to Jalen Clark. There's no Terrence Shannon Jr. There's no Rob Dillingham in the rotation. Obviously, Shannon's hurt, but, the point still stands. Like, they're making do without their 2 first-round picks from last year, who both were expected to have a big part of the rotation. So the Jake Fisher stuff's interesting. We're going to have undoubtedly a lot more Fisher rumors over the next 3+ weeks as we get ready for the deadline, which is just under a month away. So we'll talk a lot more about that as we draw ever closer to the February 5th deadline. Next, I want to talk about the NBA awards. And this is a Kevin Pelton article over at ESPN. He put together all NBA teams, and then MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Sixth Man, Most Improved Player, and Coach of the Year. Not a lot surprising here, but there's a couple things. One, the only Timberwolves player among the 15 players on the 3 All-NBA teams was Anthony Edwards. And yes, he was again on the second team, which he's been on the last 2 years. First team, I don't think it's very surprising. SGA, of course, not a surprise. I think he's also projecting out, like, for instance, Jokic isn't on here. I think he's projecting that he's not going to be eligible because of the knee injury. So he's not on here, and that shifts things a little bit. So his first team is Luka and SGA, which is inarguable. Jalen Brunson, Jaylen Brown, and Cade Cunningham, which are interesting. I don't think I disagree. He's also, by the way, not including Wemby because of injuries. So I don't know. And then the second team is Anthony Edwards, Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray, and then Karl-Anthony Towns and Kawhi Leonard. I think that's right. I haven't spent a ton of time on the NBA teams because we're 40% of the way through, but that feels about right. Kawhi's been better, I think, than people realize. Everybody stopped paying attention to the Clippers a while ago. Jamal Murray's been resurgent for sure, and especially given now how good Denver's been the last couple times out, sans Jokic. Like, Murray deserves some credit. I can't really quibble with this. My main thing is, as long as Ant's in the top 10, right? As long as Ant is in the top 10, between the top two all NBA teams, I think that's great. I think it makes sense. And so I have no quibble there. Coach of the year, of course, there's no Timberwolves mention. Most improved player, no Timberwolves mention. Sixth man of the year is where things get a little bit interesting. There's a sixth man of the year representation for Minnesota. Let's talk about that. And then one other award I want to get to, and then we'll get into the preview of Wolves Cavs tonight. We'll do that here next to close out the show today. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel's making them even better. Every Friday night, before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern, that's 5 to 6:30 Central Time, have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Open the FanDuel app during Happy Hour. You'll find something new every time. Boosts, bonuses, surprises, and more. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect. Right before the games, right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. And, of course, that's tomorrow. Like, we're a day away from the big Friday night on FanDuel. No Timberwolves game, but there's plenty of NBA action as always. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 Eastern. That's 5 to 6:30 p.m. Central Time. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, so the remainder of the awards from Kevin Pelton at ESPN here just past the 40% mark of the season includes Sixth Man of the Year. The favorite he's got is Jaime Jaquez Jr. of the Heat. And then he's got, as contenders, among them, includes Naz Reid, as well as Nickeil Alexander-Walker, old friend Nickeil with the Hawks, Reed Shepherd from the Rockets, Anthony Black from the Magic, and then he's got long shots as Colin Gillespie from the Suns, who's killed Minnesota in their two matchups this year, and AJ Mitchell from the Thunder. I think I don't think Na wins it because I think he'll end up starting a little bit too much. Maybe not with CJ McCollum coming to Atlanta, but he's already started more games because the injuries the Hawks have had. So I'm not sure he'll qualify. You have to, like, I forget what the threshold is, but there's a threshold. You can't start more than a certain number of games. So there's that. I also don't know that Nickeil's offense is going to stay at 20 plus points per game the rest of the year. He's like a little over 20 per game. The efficiency is also not great. He's been awesome. I the other day talked about Nickeil, and I didn't mean to like denigrate Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He's awesome. He's having the best season of his career. This is all true, but I don't know that his night in, night out impact is necessarily as much as some of the other guys on this list. Reed Shepherd for a really good Western Conference team is going to be up high there as well. And Reed actually is averaging a career high in points per game now also, and of course won the award 2 years ago. He's scoring more than Shepherd is. And there's, I think, a reasonable chance the Wolves end up ahead of Houston in the Western Conference standings. I'm pretty bullish on that. I said it before the season. I think it's still possible. So I like Naz as a potential winner for this award. And I actually tried to make the case last year too, when he basically got no interest from voters for the award, because 2 years ago they won 56 games. So it's like, all right, the best bench player on one of the best teams in the league, no brainer. Well, guess what? Last year, Minnesota only won 49 games. And even though Nas averaged more points and more rebounds and more assists and the same number of blocks, he didn't shoot the ball quite as well from deep, and the Timberwolves weren't as good. So he finished 5th in Sixth Man of the Year voting. Right now, he's averaging more points than he did last year. He's actually, the 3-point percentage is down a little bit more. But all the other numbers are up. The rebounds, the assists, the steals are even up. Like, everything else is up. It's just the 3-point percentage has slipped a little bit. And remember, when he won it, it was an outlier year. It's 41% from three. He's never been above 38% in any other season. And this year, he's a shade under 37%. So I think Nas has a real shot to win this award, honestly. I think if Minnesota makes a little run here in the second half of the season, the Heat perhaps enter a bit of a swoon, which would hurt Jaquez's case for the award. And same with Houston. I mean, if Minnesota finishes ahead of the Rockets and Nas averages more points than Reid Shepherd, I don't know how you vote for Reid Shepherd. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. And then the last one is Defensive Player of the Year, which there is no mention of Rudy Gobert. Kevin Pelton, who's a phenomenal analyst and analytically minded, has 7 guys listed as he's got Chet Holmgren as the favorite. Like, okay. Contenders, Bam Adebayo, Victor Wembanyama, and then long shot, Scotty Barnes, Draymond Green, Evan Mobley, and Ahmed Thompson. Nary a mention of Rudy Gobert, which is absurd. I know he's not going to win it. I get it. But I don't understand having the conversation without mentioning the guy who's won 4 and is currently quarterbacking the league's 5th best defense, a top 5 defense once again. And I've talked plenty this week, especially on the postgame pod yesterday, about just how good Rudy Gobert has been. The on-off numbers, the lineups with Rudy versus lineups without Rudy. With Rudy, the Timberwolves defense is nearly as good as the Thunder's. Like, I don't know how else. Like, it just shocks me that Pelton didn't have him. I'm sure the next time this is done, he's going to be like mentioned. He's got to be, right? It doesn't make any sense otherwise. All right, I'm not going to spend any more time on that. Let's talk about Wolves-Cavs. Game is tonight. Lately, what have the Cavs been up to? Well, they've won 4 out of 5. Now, they beat the Pacers by 4. Pacers are the worst team in the league. They beat the Suns, which is a really nice win, and they beat the Wembanyama Spurs as well. Like, Spurs with Wemby, they beat them by 12. They beat the Suns by 16, which is a nice win. And they beat the Jokic-less Nuggets by 5, which is the Jokic-less Nuggets. But then again, they just won 2 in a row against the Sixers and Celtics. So, like, we have to, impressive, right? So, for the most part, I would say those wins are pretty good. They lost the Pistons. Prior to that, they lost the Rockets and Knicks. You go back a little further, though, and they lost 3 straight games, the Bulls twice and the Hornets. Not great. So very much a roller coaster year. They're not as good as people expected them to be. I don't think there's any denying that. They're 21-17. Currently, Cleveland is 7th in the Eastern Conference, actually tied for 6th as of this recording, which is during some of the games on Wednesday night. So they're tied for 6th in the East, excuse me. And the differential is plus 2.4. It's pretty modest. Minnesota right now has a plus 5.5 differential, and of course is virtually tied for 5th in the Western Conference. Injury-wise, this is notable. There's a chance Larry Nance Jr. plays, not that he's like a world beater at this point, or that he ever was really a world beater, but he's been out for several weeks. He's questionable for this game. Dean Wade, a rotation guy for them, not a big scorer, but a big part of the rotation, got hurt the other night. He is listed as out, and Max Strus remains out. He's been out for a while for them as well. So no Wade, no Strus, and possibly there's a Larry Nance sighting for the Cleveland Cavaliers. The deal with Cleveland is they're pretty much well-rounded and solid in a lot of ways, right? Like, they're not really bad at anything. They play fast, which is sometimes a bugaboo for Minnesota. Obviously, they just play the Heat, who play faster than anybody else, and beat them twice in as many tries across 4 days, which is crazy. So there is that, the pace thing, but I guess that would be the one thing I'd look out for. Like, they run a lot, but they're not super efficient when they do it. So they're 7th in frequency of transition, according to Cleaning the Glass, but they're just 22nd in points per 100 plays on Cleaning the Glass. And they're 8th in running off steals, but they're 16th in points per 100 plays off of steals. They're 11th in frequency of running off of defensive rebounds, but they're just 25th in points per 100 plays. So the efficiency when they run isn't actually all that great. Overall, they're a good offensive team. They're 10th in the NBA in offense. They're 12th in defense on cleaning the glass. So Minnesota's top 6 in both categories. Cleveland's top 12 in both categories. The only areas that they're like bad in terms of the 4 factors are they commit a lot of shooting fouls. They allow opponents to shoot a lot of free throws, and they don't get to the line all that much themselves. Obviously, that's something like at this stage, Donovan Mitchell's not what he once was going to the basket, but he's still averaging 6 free throw attempts per game. Between he and Mobley, that's the vast majority of their diet of free throws. They've got guys healthy now that weren't earlier this year when they were struggling. Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen, guys like that should be available for them. So it's notable that they're, the guys I listed are already out. But you look at this roster, they should be better than they are. Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, healthy Darius Garland, healthy Jarrett Allen. DeAndre Hunter, of course, who they acquired last year, has been decent for them. They don't have enough guys that are great shooters, though. They're actually 4th in the NBA in three-point rate, but they're 20th in percentage. And that's probably been their biggest problem. Losing a guy like Ty Jerome, like losing guys like that really kind of supported their perimeter shooting. Donovan Mitchell shoots 10 threes a game, and he's 39%. Nobody else that launches that many, like Sam Merrill shoots 8 a game. He's 45%. He's only played in 20 games. But like Darius Garland's under 35%. Evan Mobley shoots 4 a game. He's 33%. He probably shoots at least 1 too many threes a game. DeAndre Hunter shoots almost 6 a game. He's 31% from 3. They got a lot of dudes shooting a lot of threes that are not making a lot of threes. And so I think if you're Minnesota, don't let them sprint out and get open threes in transition. I think that's probably part of the reason, kind of looking at those numbers in tandem, the inefficiency of running in transition and the bad 3-point shooting, they're probably related, would be my guess. But don't allow them to get on track against you, right? Don't allow them to get wide open threes in transition, sprint back, be competitive on the glass. Cleveland's a slightly above average rebounding team overall on both ends. So, seal off the glass. Don't let them run in transition, and make somebody besides Donovan Mitchell beat you, whether that's an incredible Evan Mobley game, which I could see him being successful against the Timberwolves front court with the type of playing style he has, or, make Darius Garland or DeAndre Hunter beat you by shooting the basketball. Neither one of these guys are great shooters, and they shoot a lot. So this side of Donovan Mitchell, is it a combination of Evan Mobley and some of these other wings and guards that beat you? I mean, I think that's what you have to try and do if you're Minnesota. And of course, they go to Cleveland for a 12 p.m. game on Amazon Prime on Saturday as well. So Friday's show will be the post-game pod after Thursday night's game. And of course, we'll get you ready for Saturday's game as well. And then don't forget about the live postcast with our guys, Jack and Luke, on this video feed, Locked On Wolves on YouTube, and also this audio feed will be, it'll be posted there if you missed the live show on Thursday night following the game. So be sure to tune in. A big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. If you never miss an episode, don't forget about the Everydayer Club. It's built for you. Get Locked On Wolves ad-free. Plus, members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonwolves.supercast.com to join the club. If you're on video after this, we'll send you to the first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel on audio. Make sure you make your second listen to the NBA Game Night Show on Locked On NBA. Of course, Locked On Wolves is also part of the very same Locked On Network, your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.